Hey guys, it's Steve here with Interglobal Comics. So I'm kind of currently watching the Comic Connect auction wind down or go on. I'm on my lunch break at work, so I figured I'd make a quick video just to kind of recap some of what's going on. Overall, I think it's definitely not as strong of an auction as it was for the previous. The previous auctions seem to have done much better. I'm not really sure what the difference is. I think maybe people either just kind of educated themselves on some of the books that were getting big money last time, like all those just kind of random Italian keys that were getting over $1,000. Those this time around seem to have definitely gone for more of what I would say is an accurate value. But then there's other stuff that is definitely not that, not easy to find, that really some of it slipped through pretty inexpensive. So let's just kind of scroll here. Sorry about the auction site. I don't know what Comic Connect did to their mobile site, but it's really almost impossible to use. So I'm just gonna have to. I can't really even screenshot anything because you can't. It's like a really long format, so I can't get it in like a good screenshot. So we're just gonna go through their website here. So a pretty huge book is this Batman 121, First Mr. Freeze from Brazil. That one was pretty. That one was hanging around $500 right at the end, but it looks like there was a little bit of a bidding war going on. $700. Still not a bad price for that book. I've only ever seen maybe two come up for sale, and one was like in total garbage condition. I still think it sold for a couple $100. Like detached cover, chewed up by bugs, really really rough. So this 3.5, I would have thought it would have gone for more selling at Heritage, or sorry, at Comic Connect, but it's I don't know what it is. Is it the market, which is pretty much in the toilet? Is it the economy, which is pretty much in the toilet, or is the timing? Being close to Christmas, people are struggling or trying to save money. So it could be a lot of factors. 7.0, which is definitely considered high grade for this Brave and the Bold 54. That went for 426. For that grade seems a little cheap, but I'm not an expert on that book. But a hard one to find in good condition. A modern reprint of Conan 1 from Spain. That one sold for $184 for some reason. To me, that would be like a $10-15 book, and it was printed in the 90s. I'm pretty sure. So a 5.0 I would think is considered pretty low grade condition. So I don't know. Maybe this person just didn't know what they were getting. Or actually, let me look at this one, because there was two different printings of that Conan one. So so this one was 1983. So this is the original. So I guess you could call it the first print. Even though there was an earlier print by Vertice that kind of had a rendition of that cover with just Conan on it. But this is from 1983. But still a pretty strong price. I think they did have the more modern version at auction as well. So we'll probably see that down the way here. Tech Comics 400, pretty decent grade, Brazilian, went for 208. That seems pretty inexpensive. This Mac Spider-Man 122 from Mexico. Went for 138, which was definitely pretty cheap for that. And those MacBooks are not easy to find. 7.0 Spider-Man 238 First Hobgoblin went for 177. 7.5 Netherlands 300 went for 173. So all these are pretty inexpensive prices for these books. Here we got some bigger, older keys. First Poison Ivy 181 from Brazil, 220. And you couldn't even buy a beat up raw copy straight out of Brazil for that cheap. These books have really dried up. So good luck trying to find a seller in Brazil to sell you one for that price. So that was definitely a very cheap price. Action Comics 242. sold for almost 1,000. So that was a solid sale there for 4.5. So some of these old Superman keys just seem to be holding their value, and the Mexican books, like the older Mexican Navarros, seem to hold up better than the older Brazilian keys, the e-balls. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's because the majority, almost all of these books are being sold by a Brazilian collector. So he has a lot more Brazilian books than probably anyone else. So he's definitely offering up a lot at every auction. So maybe it's just kind of giving that perception that these books aren't really that rare, since the same books keep popping up every auction. He's got so many of them. This Amazing Spider-Man 14 from Mexico, La Prensa, went for 408. So that's not a bad price. Someone got a pretty good deal on that. Spider-Man 2 from Brazil went for 228. That was a pretty cheap price. Spider-Man 18 from Mexico, 129. So here's a pretty huge sale. Superman, or AuctionComics 252, the first appearance of Supergirl, that went for $1,200. So that was one of the bigger sales of the auction, and that makes me happy because I just picked up one of those not too long ago, and I don't remember how much I paid for it, but it was definitely less than $400, and I think it graded to about a 4.0. I'm just gonna skip some of these. It's just a lot of kind of fluff books. Actually, I'm pretty surprised that this Fantastic Four 12 7.5 went for $400. It's a pretty big premium over the 4.5 that sold for $93. This combo, it's Fantastic Four, but it also has Fantastic Five, first appearance Dr. Doom. You can see him there on the cover. That's 6.0, sold for $217. So let's see. So these German keys, they weren't really going for much, except for the ones that were like nosebleed, high grade condition. They weren't that hard to find in high grade, or in decent grade. So it really seems the only ones that are getting the premiums are like the really really high grade ones, like this 9.2 Fantastic 448 sold for almost $700. But then the 5.0 sold for $143. 9.0 49 went for almost $500, and the 6.0 went for $185. I think having these multiples of books is kind of a bad idea for Comic Connect, because you're just competing against yourself basically at that point. And I'm not sure if multiple people were submitting books for this, or if this was all Sky Yacht's submission, but I think kind of spacing them out, so you're not kind of detracting from each other, would have been a good idea. 6.5 Fantastic Four #1 went for $327. That's very cheap. I've seen those sell for way more on eBay at about that same grade or lower. Alright, so the auction's live, so it's kind of messing up the feed here. So yeah, 4.0 Fantastic Four #1 sold for $127. That's cheaper than you'd be able to find it directly out of Germany. You just don't find them that cheap anymore. So that 4.0 was a steal for somebody. Really, so was the 6.5. So what do we got? We've got the Norwegian Detective Comics 359. Pink cover sold for $6.95. It's a pretty solid price for that book. Those are really hard to find. I wouldn't have been surprised to see it go for more than that, but this auction just didn't really seem to bring the heat like last time. Swedish Detectives 359 for $195. That's, I think, less than I just paid for a raw copy. That, I think it's the last post I have on Instagram. So that was definitely a steal, a good deal for that one. 9-2 finish, Fantastic Four #1, and that one is from the early '80s, but that only went for $177. So that seems pretty inexpensive. Fantastic Four 52 German for $204, 3.5. So it just really does seem like, besides a couple books in the auction, definitely the market did not respond the same way it did last time. Italian Daredevil 1 from Italy, $455. So I'd say it's a pretty solid price for a 4.0. I did see a couple Italian books that kind of, I was surprised by, like the Tech through 59. I'll probably come up on it here in a second. The Netherlands Daredevil, there was a 4.0 and a 6.0, 266 and 364. The Denmark Tech through 59 went for $277, so that was pretty inexpensive. Here's the Tech through 59 7.0 Italian, sold for $800. So that was a big sale. Those I haven't seen one sell for that much. But the funny thing is that's the most common of pretty much all of these Detective 359s, I would say. The Italian was by far the easiest to find. So right next to it is the Finish, which is extremely hard to find. 3.5, sold for $471. So lower grade for sure, but definitely way harder to find. The German 359 sold for $310. That's a pretty cheap price. The German and the French and the Netherlands look almost identical. The white covers, but they're all very difficult to find in decent condition, because they're printed on like the thinnest paper. Just kind of some random keys. All right, so this Captain America 100 sold for $162. I'm pretty sure the last auction, one of those sold for over $1,000. So some people were just kind of spending money, not really, I think, knowing what they were really buying at the last auction. So I think either those collectors just bowed out of this auction, or at least educated themselves about which one of these, some of these foreigns that are actually really rare and which ones aren't. The Italian cornos, they're really not rare, and some have gotten hard to find just because of the demand, like the AF-15, the yellow background. You can find them, but they're just hard to get in decent condition, and to try and get an Italian seller to ship it to you. What did I do here? Yep, so then we got the German 251, Batman 251, Joker cover sold for $408. And the Swedish sold for $327. The German, definitely in higher grade, but one of the easier ones to find. All right, let's see. We got the Denmark Batman 181, First Poison Ivy 4.0, sold for $253, so that's pretty inexpensive. The 8.0, the Batman Adventures 12, first appearance of Harley Quinn, went for $119. So that's I've sold raw copies for more than that money, or for more than that. On eBay, you could sell those for $200. So that was a low sale. Seems like the Batman Adventures 12s don't really do as well at these auctions. Those, it almost seems like better just to sell them on eBay. We got some low grade German Avengers 1, sold for $184. For the 3.0, a 9.0 first appearance of King. Avengers 8 went for $449, so that was a high price for that one. That's definitely not a hard book to find. In that grade, I'd say it's not as common, but German stuff it's really not that hard to find in decent condition, or at least it wasn't I haven't hunted for German books in a long time, but you know, that's a pretty strong price for that one. 5.0 went for $86, so pretty big discrepancy. It seems like people were actually paying more attention to the grade than than anything. 7.5 Italian went for $333. 7.0 Spider-Man Annual 1 went for $415, where the 4.5 went for $63. So I don't really understand that. I get that it's obviously in higher grade, but it just seems to be a pretty huge gap there. So I'm not really sure what was going on in this auction. And for me, I'd take that lower grade all day long. You can't get it shipped from Italy for that price, and slabbed. So you might as well. I'd be going for a $63 book. I didn't. And for like full disclosure, I didn't bid on a single book this auction. I haven't been really buying much of anything. I did buy some original art from Indonesia that should be hopefully making its way to me here in the next probably month or so. But that's really the only comic purchase I've had in the last couple months. Let's see. So 5.0 Avengers 1 went for $367. 6.5 Spider-Man 129 from Sweden went for $415. So pretty high grade on that Italian 122 Spider-Man went for $403. So yeah, really the grades seem to be the driving factor in these sales more than anything. Regardless of rarity of the book, people just seem to be focusing more on the grade than anything else. Nothing there. So this 9.0 Italian Spider-Man 300 went for $576. Which it ended up being a pretty solid sale for that book. 9.0 is pretty. It's high grade, but the top of the census has definitely grown for the Spider-Man 300, the Italian edition. There's a lot of guys that were trying to get high grade copies of that book, and finally I think someone got a CGC 9.6, I think, and then someone has a CBCS 9.8. So the high grade books are out there. It's just they're not. To be the top of the census is almost impossible with that all black cover, So, and that book really wears easily. So 9.0, I think it deserved that price, $576. It ended up being a pretty good price. Not really cheap, not really overpriced, I would say, for a Comic Connect auction. If that's sold on eBay, then I'd probably be like, that was a lot of money. But after that Lost Comic Connect auction, I had pretty high expectations. I thought this auction was gonna blow it out of the water, kind of like last time. Nothing too exciting here. Just a bunch of Italian Spider-Man keys. Nothing went for crazy money. And pretty average prices, I would say. Basically, kind of in line with probably what you would get on eBay. 8.0 German Spider-Man 129 went for $500 almost. So that was a really solid sale. It's not a particularly hard book to find. Like all those German keys. It's not that hard to find. Not that hard to find in good condition. But those 7.0 plus books are going to be a little more difficult and demand that premium. So 9.6 Hungarian, that was just printed like 2 years ago, sold for $63. So I'd say it was kind of doesn't really deserve a premium. It's a just printed out book, kind of just a modern reprint, modern foreign language printing. 9.4 German Spider-Man 121 went for $489. So another high grade book going for a good price there. Spider-Man 50, 8.5, sold for $4.60. Not a bad price. Alright, so here comes the Italian AF-15s that don't include AF-15 in the guts, but just has that kind of modified yellow AF-15 cover. So the 5.5 sold for almost $1,000, so that's pretty amazing price there. And then the 8.5 went for $3,666. So that's just crazy. And you could have picked these books up for $100 to $200 all day long off Italian eBay, maybe 1, 2, 3 years ago, and just kind of pick through them to find the highest grade copies, sold off the under copies. But the fact this book's getting that much money now is pretty amazing. So it's cool to see. I have one, and of course it came back restored, but I can't remember what grade it is. I think it's like a 6.0 or something like that. But I held out too long. I didn't spend a lot of money buying it, but I waited too long. I should have bought a few higher grade copies, but I had no idea that was going to be the big Italian book to get, because I thought, this is, in Italy, this is issue 18, so, it doesn't have AF-15 inside, doesn't even have a key story inside, but, it's really just all about that cover. $209 for the finish ASM 129. That was really cheap. Those sold. I've seen those in 9.8 sell for $300-$400 on and that's like on eBay. Alright, those are the ones we just saw. 6.0 Spider-Man 1 from Germany for $748. So that's a pretty decent number there for the seller. Not a bad sale there. And then the 3.5 sold for $347. So that kind of seems more realistic. Not a insane drop off. Simply based on the grade. I guess this is about half the grade, got half the price. Whereas some of the other ones, the lower grade copies seem to be like way less. Oops. I was kind of surprised to see this Adventure Comics 247 from Greece only sold for $270. I thought this, that's going to be much harder to find, and probably way harder to find than the Brazilian, and probably almost as equally as hard to find as maybe the Mexican. I'm not sure. I've got both. I've owned 2 copies of the Greek. I've owned 2 copies of the Mexican. So I'm not really sure, and it wasn't particularly hard for me to get them, just because I have a source in Greece that helped me out, and then I have a pretty good line on getting Mexican books, but you just got to be patient. I've only seen 2 or 3 of the Mexican come up for sale, and I bought 2 of them, and that's in the last 6 years. And I sold my extra for like $100 a couple years ago, so probably should have held up for longer and for more money, but it's okay. So this Greek AF-15, that's the first print in Greece, sold for $500. So that was definitely a pretty solid sale for the Greek book, because I've seen typically in the past I've always been able to get a pretty decent amount of those, and I've always sold them for right around $100, maybe $120. So 6.0 selling for $509 is definitely a step up in price there. So Daredevil 1 from Denmark. So this is like an original book from the early 60s, mid 60s. Sold for $585. So that seems a little cheap. Let's see what's going on with my internet. Well, might have to do a part 2 of this if my internet doesn't want to work here. There we go. All right, now it's working. All right. So then we've got, all right, so here's another one of the really hard to find Tech 359s from Mexico, sold for $525, 3.5. So I think I just sold a 3.0. I can't remember what I sold it for. I think I sold it for $400 around there. So yeah, this is a little bit higher than what I'd sold for, but I would have thought maybe it would have gone a little more than that. Famous Funnies 213 Frazetta cover, two different Mexican versions, an older version and a newer version, I think. The 2.0 sold for $560, and the, I believe would be the newer version that has the redrawn cover, sold for $637. Adventure Comics 247 4.0 sold for $393, which is significantly less than a raw copy just sold on eBay for I think $600. The raw copy was pretty nice grade, looked like a pretty high grade copy, but it was raw in Mexico, or I think it might have come from Spain, can't remember. So you just kind of don't know what you're going to get. So I'm pretty surprised to see that this sold for $393. I thought it would have gone higher than the raw copy that just sold on eBay. $290 for the Fantastic Four Digest number 5, first appearance of Dr. Doom. $290. That's a pretty cheap price. I think one sold on eBay not too long ago raw for like $600 maybe. Let's see what else. Yeah, so not crazy, not too crazy of numbers. Not this auction. So this is kind of getting into some raw books. Was that a Batman Adventures 12 from Brazil? Sold for $188. Still sealed in a bag with its. I don't know. What does it come with, a poster? I don't know. It says still sealed in poly bag. Yeah, I don't know. You don't see many in the poly bag. I think they came with like a trading card or something like that. But $180. That's a pretty inexpensive price. I've sold those raw without the bag, without the card, which I didn't even know it came with the card. I don't think people realize that until this last year or two. But I've sold those for $200 all day on eBay a couple years ago. So that's a drop in price there. Avengers 1 sold for $450 raw copy. I'm not sure why they didn't slab these digest size books. Spider-Man 300, the Brazilian, sold for $78. So this Spider-Man 129 from Brazil sold for $165, which is crazy cheap. I mean, that's a really hard book to find. So yeah, I'm very surprised that sold for that cheap. So all these raw books, they went pretty lower than probably most people would sell them for out of Brazil. Adventure Comics 247, it says a 9.0, so if this was 9.0, why the hell didn't they slab it? I don't get that, but it sold for $770. So still, got a good price, even though it's just a raw copy. 6.5 Brave and the Bold 28 went for $1,025. So solid sale there. $7.5 Daredevil 1 went for $1,160. So that's a very high grade copy that got a premium. Surprised honestly it didn't go higher. Probably could have gone higher a couple months ago, or a couple years ago. Let's see. 4.5 Spider-Man 1 from Brazil, $541. So that's pretty, seems kind of inexpensive there. And I think that is it for this auction. So the auction's still going on. So maybe I'll do like a part 2. Once the whole auction's done, I can kind of show off the other books that were towards the end of the auction. But yeah, kind of like I said, still some pretty big sales in the mix, but overall I feel like everything definitely seemed to be going cheaper than the last auction. Who knows the reason? Like I said, is it the market? Is it the timing? I don't know. I almost sent in a bunch of books to this auction. I'm glad I didn't, because I probably would have done all right, but definitely wouldn't have reached the numbers that they were getting at the last auction, which is really the only thing that made me consider selling some of the big keys that I have. So yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to just kind of sit on my books and think about what I want to do. But like I said, right now I'm not really buying hardly anything, and so that's why I really haven't been posting much on Instagram. I'm still there interacting with people, liking foreign posts and stuff like that. But yeah, I just really don't have much to post on my page right now. But we'll see. Hopefully that'll change. And I kind of feel like I've always been the type of person, the more I sell, the more I buy. So right now, not much is really selling. So right now, I'm just not buying much. And I feel like there's a lot of people in the market that are doing the same. But hope you all have a good one. I will catch you, hopefully soon. I'll try and make a part 2 video. I'm leaving tomorrow to go to Puerto Rico. So I don't know if I'll be able to do it for a little while, but we'll see. Have a good one. Bye.